Welcome to Crossroad Connection. We're speaking out for those left unheard. My name is David Churinga. I'm the president of Crossroad Bible Institute and the host of your program. I have in the studio with me today a very special guest. Her name is Shawn Perry. Welcome, Shawn.
Well, thank you.
Maybe just I want to tell the folks a little bit about you. You've been an attorney since 1988. Your career has extended to all aspects of family and criminal law. You've served as an assistant prosecuting attorney, a solo practitioner, a family court referee, as well as an administrator for the 61st District Court and all kinds of things like that.
That's correct.
And right now, you are also involved with the Restorative Justice Coalition in Grand Rapids.
Yes.
So there's all kinds of good things we can talk about. I want to talk about restorative justice with you because as an attorney and how you get involved with that and how that's working out.
Okay.
But I would like to just pick your brain a little bit from your experience in the prosecuting attorney side of things with criminal law.
Okay.
Because I find that rather intriguing, and I think it doesn't go quite as people think it goes.
It does not.
It
Correct.
does not. Okay. The prosecutor, people without means, for example, will get a defense lawyer assigned to them.
Correct.
Now, I'm on the Michigan Campaign for Justice Board, and we were instrumental in getting that latest legislation across to improve indigent public defense.
Very good.
So the fact is that a person who can't hire their own lawyer, they don't get the best defense, do they?
Well, I am a court-appointed attorney for Kent County, so I would
in
say,
many cases.
Yes. And unfortunately, for instance, in Kent County, you make about $450 a case. So if you're doing an armed robbery case, for instance, that's really low money, and that doesn't leave you a lot of money to do things like hire a private investigator, spend the time really digging in and checking into facts. So you're correct about that.
And it's better for the court system and the defense lawyers and prosecuting attorneys if they plea it out.
That's right. That's correct.
So most people don't realize that most people don't get tried by a jury of their peers.
Well, I think even when I'm retained on a case, a lot of times what we tell a client is first we're going to look at the police report and go in a direction, see if there's anything that has been done incorrectly. If not, we want to move in the direction of what I like to call minimizing damages. So minimizing for that person the effect of the offense that they've committed and how it's going to affect the rest of their life. So, but I would say that, and I don't have exact statistics, but I bet you it's at least 80 to 90% of the cases are resolved by a plea bargain.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. And for the defense lawyers, a lot of times they don't have a whole lot of time to spend with the client prior to it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, because you're overworked, underpaid, and all the rest.
But not without passion.
Not without passion.
Most of us have a lot of passion for what we do.
Yeah, well, you'd have to put yourself through that.
Right.
It strikes me that this is ripe for opportunity of over-sentencing.
For over-sentencing,
because they take a plea and then they say take this or leave it or this is going to happen. Am I way off there?
I think it actually goes the opposite.
Really?
What happens is that's what we work out the plea bargain on is for a sure or a range of sentencings. So, for instance, it might be a person's first offense. They have some things that they can help the prosecutor out. So they might plead to that felony, but with a agreement that it's a reduced sentence. So what we call a 1-year jail cap, for instance.
But that'd be up to the defense lawyer to get that deal.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And the prosecuting attorneys, what's their attitude in these kind of situations?
Well, in Kent County, they have a lot of cases of what they call policy cases. We have in Michigan sentencing guidelines. Those guidelines are what the judge has to stay within. And the guidelines, they get scored by their prior criminal record, both juvenile and adult record. And then there's certain things which we call offense variables. And those offense variables are things like, was somebody physically harmed? Was a gun used? Was terrorism used? And each one of those things, there's a whole set of questions that you have to answer, and you score points to them. And then it comes up with points, and it's a grid. So the prosecutor's job is sometimes made easy because there's this grid, and they kind of have us over the barrel as far as us criminal defense attorneys. The prosecutor hopefully sees that sometimes those are not the crime, the punishment doesn't fit what this person actually did in this offense. They might have actually committed this crime, but it wasn't to the degree of offensiveness to our community that the guidelines called for. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Mandatory sentencing, good or
Yes. Bad. I'll tell you
tell me about
a
it.
perfect case. I have a client, I won't use any names, but he's in his 50s, no criminal record whatsoever. He got caught up with this medical marijuana, the new law in Michigan, medical marijuana. Nobody, he wasn't selling to outside people marijuana. He had his group of 6, but he had 7 plants too many. 7 little teeny tiny plants.
And this is after the medical marijuana law had,
Right.
Okay.
He was 7 plants too many. Federally, there are mandatory minimums. His mandatory minimum for having 7 little teeny tiny plants was 5 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's over sentencing.
That's over sentencing. And there's nothing you can do in federal court. So I hope our state never goes to it, because he's now stuck with a 5-year federal prison,
Right.
which has no good time. He's going to serve 5 years for having.
Yep.
Nobody was
he'll
harmed.
come out a criminal.
Well, either that or, he'll age real fast.
Yeah, right.
He's in his 50s, so.
Yeah, the famous stories of people, getting 5 or 10 years for stealing a pizza because of the third strike and so forth.
Right.
So in my sense, you're a lawyer. I'm a theologian.
Mm-hmm.
But in my sense, mandatory sentencing prohibits a judge from administering justice.
Perfect. I agree with that 100%.
Because justice requires the law and so forth to be applied in a unique circumstance.
Correct.
And, the judge needs to hear the evidence. He needs to talk to the criminal or the perpetrator.
Right.
And you cannot administer justice. So to me, it just flies in the face of what the Bible talks about when it talks about justice, and especially justice for the poor.
I agree with it 100%. And that's a reason that, unfortunately, it also doesn't work, is what you just said, the poor. Because, our perfect example in this world is O.J. Simpson. He had all the money in the world to hire all these people.
The rich get off, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have all these people that don't have that money and are on death row.
Right. Yep. After the break, I want to
Okay.
talk about restorative justice.
Excellent. Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Stay connected to what's happening at Crossroad Bible Institute with Crossroad Network News. This free magazine is designed to keep you informed and inspired about what Christ Church is doing in prisons and jails. If you'd like a free subscription to Crossroad Network News, fill out the form online by visiting us at cbi.fm.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. I'm talking today with Sean Perry, who is a lawyer very much engaged in criminal law, understands all the issues, and we've been talking about a few of them. We wanted to get into this idea of restorative justice, and I hope we'll still have time to do that, but
Okay.
there's so many interesting things that we're talking about. I just wanted to follow up a little bit. We talked about mandatory sentencing not being a way that that justice can be administered.
Right.
We have the same problem with the death penalty.
I absolutely agree with that.
Whether you're for or against it, the problem is that poor people of color, for mostly, are on death row, and
Right.
therefore it should be at least suspended until it can be applied justly.
Right. And whether I come at it from my legal background or from my religious background, I come to the same conclusion as you do, because you see it all the time. They also not just poor, but people that have mental handicaps, because they don't know how to help them, help the attorney that's representing them very well either. But
right.
It's not. You're correct. Until it is able to, you can tell me that every single person, no matter if they're the Kennedys or Joe on the street, are treated exactly the same, we should suspend it.
There has to be justice for all.
Correct.
And so we talked about lack of justice with mandatory sentencing. We talked about lack of justice with the death penalty.
Correct.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here.
Okay.
But I was speaking with actually a ministry leader here in Michigan, West Michigan.
Okay.
And his conclusion was that the reason that there are so many people of color in prison is because people of color commit more crimes than white people.
Well, I don't know about that. In fact, I represent, an equal number: white, Hispanic, black.
Well, I'm baiting you a bit for
Yes.
another justice question.
Okay.
Because the facts that I have is like 13% of whites use drugs, 13% of African Americans use drugs, but 59% of those convicted for drug use are African American.
Probably because.
So you can't say that
right.
they commit more crime, but they are targeted.
Right.
And when you're it's like you go to an urban setting, okay? It's like shooting fish in a barrel,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And plus, over against, if you're looking for drug users in the suburbs, the people in the inner city don't have the resources to challenge the arrest, and unlikely to get off. So it's more of a sure conviction. Am I out of line?
I don't think you're out of line. I also think that they're not looking for drug use in the suburbs, even though you and I know that there are plenty of drug users, whether it's marijuana, cocaine, or the wrongful use of prescription drugs going on in the suburbs just as well as is going on in the inner city of Grand
Human
Rapids.
nature is human nature.
Correct.
I mean, if we're going to start saying that a particular ethnic group is more wicked than others,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Hitler did,
Right.
right? You
Right.
get rid of them, right?
Right. I just think it's easier for the kids in the suburbs. I say kids figuratively. It's easier for them to conceal it than it is for the kids in the inner city.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also another justice issue,
Right.
So then maybe we have to change marijuana, decriminalize it or something, because if they're using that to put away a certain demographic of the population, then another situation, well, at least suspend some of these enforcement issues until it can be applied justly.
Correct.
And that seems to me to be the issue. Now, we talk about justice and we talk about this way of going about things. There's another way.
There is another way.
Restorative justice.
Yes.
What have you been involved with this restorative justice?
Well, at first I was reluctant, I will tell you. When David LeGrand approached me, yes, he approached me to put restorative justice into the 61st District Court, and I was a little reluctant, and he gave me a book to read. And I started to think a little bit more about it. And the problem is we use our justice system to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to punish, really.
It's
We can
retributive justice,
Right.
not restorative.
Right, correct. And what restorative justice, there's a coalition that has formed in Grand Rapids to look into how we can start applying it. And the thought is that the city of Grand Rapids has a very strong neighborhood association. Each neighborhood has their own neighborhood association director, they might call her chairperson, and they're very involved in their communities. When I'm going to dare to say, when you and I were young, we might have done something like threw our baseball through the neighbor's window. Not on purpose, we were playing ball. Now, your parent would have got you up, walked you over to the neighbors. You and the neighbor would have had a conversation where you apologized. You made right by cutting the neighbor's lawn or doing something to make the money to fix the window. And the neighbor would realize that it wasn't because you were this awful person. You just did a bad thing at that moment, or a thoughtless thing. And now what our community and our society has moved to is everybody just needs to be punished. There's no look the other way or understanding that good people do bad things sometimes.
Sure.
And so instead, you're now charged with malicious destruction of property as a juvenile,
Right.
and you have to be put on probation.
Yeah.
And your neighbor has never been made whole in that.
Right.
Whether it
has
be
to come
through
full circle.
Right, whether it be through the restitution or understanding that this was just a young kid that made a mistake.
And after he gets into the system, the neighbor's irrelevant actually to the case.
Absolutely correct. I mean, they might have a little say,
Yeah.
and you hope
So restorative justice, the idea is that to try to make things right.
Correct.
In a healthy way. And
Yes.
all of the contributors have a role in it, right?
They have a stake.
They have a stake in it.
Yes, absolutely, and that includes your neighbor, your family, and hopefully, the police are only there if for the things that we really need police there for the
Right.
serious crimes, for the dangerous crimes, not for neighborhood disputes that happen or wrongs that happen. For a number of reasons, whether it's by accident or a person's demise.
How likely is it that this can get integrated into our justice system?
I think it's likely. I think that this is.
I mean, the culture is pretty retributive.
It is very retributive, but we're hoping that that Grand Rapids school system will get on board, and we know that we have the neighborhood associations that are very involved and want to be on board with this idea. We have professors from both Grand Rapids Community College and Grand Valley that are criminal justice professors that are also trying to get the ball rolling. It's getting some traction, and Calvin College is very involved in it.
Is it all involved in the court system itself?
The idea is to keep it out of the court system.
Oh, this is all pre-court stuff.
Right. So it's a diversion, let's call it a diversion program.
So then you have to do a lot of education. Don't call the cops right away. Let's figure this out.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Or even, what we're hoping for is that in Grand Rapids, each neighborhood also has a police officer, a community police officer that is assigned to their neighborhood. What we're hoping also is that police officer, instead of writing a ticket or going to the prosecutor's office, will refer the case for restorative justice program.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they'll see, you accidentally cut your neighbor's tree down. You didn't mean to do it. That is actually a serious misdemeanor in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
And so instead, let's make it right. You didn't, you weren't doing it to say, "Oh, I hate this neighbor. I'll cut his tree down." You just made a mistake, or maybe you thought, "I'm tired of it shading my roof too much," and you should have went to him first. But I think the big thing is that we're getting away from empathy and compassion in our criminal justice system with also the offenders, and this gives them an opportunity that I would hope. We all hope that they would actually understand how they hurt this family.
Yes.
That's
right.
So they're not just, cops picking on me kind of thing. Instead, they understand there's a real person behind the crime that you committed.
Right. When my son Greg, who's a pastor right now, and he was the greatest son ever growing up. But one time I got a phone call. He was about, I guess, second or third grade. Mm-hmm. And we got a phone call. This lady said, "Your son threw rocks at my house." And he denied it vigorously that he did. And I said, "Well, then we have to go talk to that lady," And so we walked over there, and we're almost up to the sidewalk. And he says, "I may have tossed a couple pebbles." I said, "Well, then we're gonna acknowledge that, and you're gonna say I'm sorry, and she's gonna forgive." You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But see, we don't do that anymore.
Right.
We just want to burn everybody at the stake.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, we definitely. Personally, I really feel so strongly that we need to punish, but we need to punish in a restorative way, not in a retributive way.
Right.
See, some people think restorative justice or restorative punishment is getting soft on crime. It's actually much more. It's tougher, isn't it? Because most of the time, I'll bet that the perpetrator doesn't want to see the victim.
That's correct.
It's easier to do time. You're
right.
But to face them,
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. So that's why it's more difficult.
Right.
And then to give the person, the victim, the chance to forgive.
Right.
You know.
In my 26 years of being an attorney, my experience has been that most offenders, most people that I deal with, are not hardened criminals that don't have a sense of empathy or compassion within them. There are those few that are, amoral, that will never be able to be, that it won't work for. But they wouldn't be put into the program anyway.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. If they don't ever have to face the person, and all they're facing is the judge, or when they're facing the judge, are they really facing themselves?
A crime against the state.
Right.
It's not the difference in a crime against Mrs. Johnson.
Correct. Correct.
Sean, this has been really helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I hope that you'll come back again sometime.
Anytime you want.
Okay.
I would work it out in my schedule.
Okay.
I enjoy speaking about it.
Yes, I know you're very busy. Maybe.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll have to talk more.
Okay, we will.
And I want to thank you for being with us. We've been talking with Sean Perry, an attorney, about justice and restorative justice. So she's on both of those areas. She wants to see justice administered in the current situation, but also we want to have a less retributive and have a more restorative approach to justice issues. So thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you again right here next week.